Hey, let's talk a little Lions. Now let's do
Lions.
so with one of our faves, the great Dave Birkett, Detroit Free Press Lions Beat. You can follow him on Twitter at Dave Birkett. Dave, thanks so much, my friend. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Doing great.
Good, Dave.
Michigan nabbed top quarterback today, so doing okay, Dave.
Good day in Wolverine land for
Yeah,
sure.
that's right, my friend. That's right. Hey,
Maybe the Lions will pick a quarterback by then.
yeah, right. Hey, it's
There
been
you
a couple of good weeks in Lions land. At least we believe it's been a couple of good weeks in Lions land. Dave, after the owners' meeting and the league meetings in Phoenix, Arizona out there, what should Lions fans what should they look for? I mean, Dan Campbell was very hopeful about this year competing with the big boys.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, that was the expectation coming out of last season. It should be the expectation after free agency. And, I kind of wrote this the other day that they were, they're one of the buzziest teams in the NFL, I think. Just that there's a lot of people that sort of look at them and say, oh, man, this team really could win some games, and not just in the regular season. Like, they have a shot to win the division. You do that, you get a home playoff game, and maybe you get a postseason win or two. So nothing's guaranteed, of course, but, they added 3 new starters in free agency to that defensive backfield. They've got 2 first-round picks to add some depth to this team. They don't have any real glaring holes. So if I was a Lions fan, I think my team's in a pretty good spot right now.
Dave, what's going on, brother? It's Braylon. Hey, quick thought. I ran this by the guys the other day. Something I don't think people had a chance to think about. Look at Goff's success last year. I'm going to just play devil's advocate and have some fun. Look at Goff's success last year. 4,800 yards, 29 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Like, he played extremely well last year. Played better than anybody thought he could. He played exactly where he needed to in terms of to give us, some belief in him. Now, last year he plays with Amon-Ra St. Brown, his pure target. At tight end, he had Huck for 6-7 games, and they were indecisive in those games with him. No other real tight end usage the majority of the season. DJ Chark in and out of a lot of games, so no real usage by him. And then DeAndre Swift, he's in, he's out. They use him, they move him. Jamal Williams. What I'm trying to get at, for Goff to play that well with a very indecisive offensive unit, one that wasn't always on there together, a lot of different moving parts, should we give him the benefit of the doubt and thinking if they put some pieces in front of him, some consistent pieces, he might be the answer for the future? I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the that's what the Lions people would tell you, right? Like, I've had this conversation with people before that there's a lot of recency bias and not talking about his time in Detroit, but his time in LA when he came here, right? People look at how it ended and maybe not understanding exactly what was going on with Sean McVay and saying, hey, there's more to this guy, right? He was the quarterback of the Rams when they went to the Super Bowl, and then you look how he played last year. I do think it wouldn't be wrong to think that maybe the Lions got a steal in Goff. Now, I would say this though, he was playing behind a really, really good offensive line, and
very true.
That's the case again this year. And as well as Braylon, you're right that there maybe are or were some questions about his supporting cast, but it's pretty good when you compare it to some of the other spots in the NFL. Amon-Ra St. Brown is a really good receiver, and it was complete, at least. Maybe not a superstar receiver or tight end, especially after they traded away Hawkinson, but it was complete. And so I think Jared Goff has a lot to work with. I think he's better than a lot of people have given him credit for, but I still don't think anyone, including the people that really like him, would put him in that Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow type category where he's the end all be all at the position.
Well,
Okay,
Dave,
appreciate it, Dave.
You know where I stand on the quarterback, Dave. I do like Goff, but I do think it's time to reach for the future. But that said, bringing Marvin Jones in here. Marvin Jones comes back to the Lions. We lose DJ Chark, of course. What's the difference between those two guys? And do you think Marvin Jones will fit this style of an offense?
I do. I mean, I think Marvin and DJ are fairly similar. I mean, DJ's a little bit bigger, but Marvin is sort of a contested, deep ball, guy too, right? He's a guy that he's not going to wow you with the blazing speed necessarily, but when he was here that first go round with Stafford, I mean, he made some great catches where it looked like he was covered, and Stafford just put it up, and Marv went up and got it. And so, you pair that with Jameson and his speed on the outside. Certainly, you have Amon-Ra, working the underneath. I do think Marvin can be an effective receiver for the Lions. Now, look, he's older than Chark. He's coming off just at least statistically what appeared to be kind of a so-so season in Jacksonville. But I do like the signing as sort of an extra security blanket and some more veteran depth at that wide receiver position.
Talking to Dave Birkett, Detroit Free Press, Lions beat. Dave, I wanted to ask you about Jalen Carter. We saw a report yesterday that the I can't stop that. The Las Vegas Raiders have taken Jalen Carter off their draft board totally.
Several teams.
And now today we've seen a report that perhaps several teams have taken Jalen Carter off their draft boards. What do you make of this? What do you know of this? Dan Campbell talked about Carter and some things that he found interesting, quote unquote. Did you read between the lines there in Dan Campbell's love or not love of Jalen Carter?
Yeah, and to add to that, I think there was a report last week from TV folk, and you know how those people are, Ryan, that would not be considering Jalen Carter with their top 10 pick either. So look, I think there's a lot of smoke there, and to say he's not on your draft board, look, there's always a risk reward. So maybe at 8 you're not drafting him, but at 18 you would be. And I think look, the Lions have a decision to make. They're doing lots of homework on him. That includes bringing him in for a pre-draft visit. I wrote that the other day, and I asked Dan at the owners' meetings. He was. He's getting all these questions about, dealing with character risks and if the locker room is good enough to handle him and, what you need to see. And I said, hey, we're talking about Jalen Carter here. And he said, yeah, we do all this homework on him. And we actually talked to a guy last week from Georgia about him. And he had some interesting things to say. And I said, well, were those good or bad? Well, they were interesting. And, just the way he answered it led me to believe that it raised more questions about, his practice habits or his work ethic or whatever it may be. So, I think, and I put this in my last mock, I would not have the Lions taking Jalen Carter right now. We still have, 3-4 weeks until the draft, so there's definitely time for that to change. The Lions are doing all their homework on him, but, I'm not sure that he's the right fit for that locker room, just given what I know right now.
Dave, what about Anthony Richardson? He had his pro day yesterday and ended the session with a flip. This kid just looks like he's got all the freaking tools, man. Do you believe there's any chance he's even going to be there at 6?
Yeah, you threw me off because I was expecting Maz to ask.
I wanted to, Dave, but I wanted to wait.
Hey, Dave, it's going to be one of them. Somebody's coming at you with the Anthony Richardson question.
The Pro Football Focus has him mocked to the Lions. They have the Lions moving up to 3 to get him.
It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Wait till you see what they gave up.
Yeah, I think we talked about this before. Look, I've been in the quarterback camp for a while for the Lions, right? Because I truly believe, like, if you in the NFL, right, if you get that, if you find your Mahomes, like, you're going to win not just this year, but you're going to win for a decade plus, right? And so I've long believed that, and I've long thought the Lions need to go about getting their guy if they could identify him. I don't think the Lions are drafting a quarterback this year. Richardson looks super tantalizing. He's a long way away, though. And, Bryce Young's a guy that's going to come in and start right away, and C.J. Stroud's a guy that's going to come in and start right away.
For bad teams.
For bad teams. But, Anthony Richardson needs a year of development. And, if he's sitting or 2 or whatever it may be, different than Trey Lance, but I point to the Trey Lance thing where everyone said, well, this guy's only got, 15 starts under his belt or whatever he had. And, 2 years later, he still only got 15 starts. So how has he gotten better? And I think, that's part of the conundrum with Anthony Richardson is that he needs to play, probably to get some of the things worked out, the footwork or the accuracy or whatever it may be. And he's not going to get a lot of reps, even if he comes to a team like Detroit that seems like a great situation for him where he can sit and learn and there's no pressure, but maybe he's not getting, the on-field experience that he needs. So I would have no problem with the Lions taking Anthony Richardson. I think he's a really exciting player. there's plenty to dream on there. I just don't see the Lions pulling the trigger on that one.
Dave, I want to ask you about two of your columns that you wrote, two really good pieces on players that could be a factor or not this year with the Lions. One is Vaitai. How do you see that guard position playing out? There's three guards there with Jonah Jackson, Vaitai, and Glasgow, really.
None of them assigned past next year.
Right. How do you see that really shaking out?
Yeah, throwing a fourth with whoever they draft, right?
Exactly, because they will take somebody.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Look, I mean, Jonah obviously is locked in at left guard, and, he's a guy that is a candidate for an extension. The right guard spot is the one that's TBD, and I think if Vaitai is healthy, he's the guy that has the edge there. I know the Lions said they got some optimistic reports on him here recently, and, I would guess that would give him the slight edge over Glasgow. Glasgow, to me, even though we all see him as a starter here because of what he's done in the past, to me he seems a lot like their Evan Brown, right, where he can play center if Ragnow gets hurt, he can play guard if Vaitai gets hurt. And that doesn't mean he's not going to start because, again, he has that experience. But I would think first snap of camp, if Vaitai is healthy, he's the guy that's taking that first snap at right guard.
And then the other piece that I really liked was just talking about Jeff Okudah and where his place on the Lions is. Dave, I asked Dre Bly about him yesterday. Dre Bly was on our show yesterday, and I asked him about it, and he said, look, the most important thing you got to figure out if you're a player is you have to be available. That's number one. And this is a player who just has not been able to play a full season yet as a Lion. How do you see that part of it shaken out with Jeff Okudah in training camp?
Yeah, look, give Dan Campbell credit for his honesty. When I asked him about Jeff Okudah at the owners meetings, and he said, well, we signed three guys, and obviously, they're pretty good players, and that doesn't mean they're going to start, but they probably will. I mean,
right?
He was really honest about it, and that's the way I look at the secondary too. Those three guys that they brought in, they're starting, and Jerry Jacobs is probably your fourth cornerback, and so, Jeff Okudah is your second backup option on the outside right now. And look, I just, that's a big fall from grace for, a number 3 overall pick from a couple years ago. I think Jeff did some good things last year. Whatever the reason, whether it's health or confidence or, just not developing like they thought because of those injuries, it just hasn't quite happened for him here yet. And he's still a young guy, and I certainly wouldn't give up on him right now or even this season. But the Lions have a decision to make on his 5th-year option. And given what he's shown on the field so far and the cost of that tag, it's about $11 million guaranteed. I think this is probably Jeff's last season in Detroit.
All right, Dave, before we let you go, give us number 6 and number 18 right now. Your new mock right here on Woodward Sports. Let's hear it.
Yeah, I'll probably do another mock next week.
I know you will.
Because it's every 2 weeks here, and that's when the next one will be coming. Look, I still wouldn't have them taking Jalen Carter, but, if he's there, he has to be considered. I mean, I think Tyree Wilson, if he's there, pass rusher from Texas Tech, I think he's the guy, just because Brad Holmes really likes those defensive linemen. That's how he wants to build. Tyree Wilson is, you look at him and he's built like you'd want a defensive end to be built, 6'6" and big and long and, can sort of do everything. Needs a lot of coaching. But I think the Lions believe in the teachers that they have on staff. And so, to me, if he's there at number 6, I think he's the guy that the Lions take.
Hey, I'm telling you like this, Dave. At 18, I wouldn't be surprised. Jordan Addison, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with that.
Oh, yes, absolutely. One of the best in the business. Subscribe to the Free Press. Dave Birkett, Detroit Free Press, Freep.com, Lions Beat, on Twitter, at Dave Birkett. Dave, thanks for joining us on short notice. We really appreciate it, my man.
You got it, guys. We'll talk to you again.
You guys,
buddy. Have a good weekend.
Subscribe to the Free Press, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely. We're going to take a break. Come right back.